ground, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, non-contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
Ooh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I'm your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle Bird. How we doing, everybody? How's everybody's week going? Huh? Hump day, bump day, spooky season, huh? Right? Come on now. SZN, right? Are you one of those people? Are you a hashtag spooky season person? If you are, shut this shit off because I don't want your listen. I hate the 3-letter season deal. Am I an old man? Am I an old man for being mad at that? But 3 letters that I do not hate, 3 letters that I love are TNA, total non-stop angle, huh? Is that a thing they do? I don't remember. Kurt Angle's here for TNA Genesis 2006. It is the genesis, not of Michael McGillicuddy, but it's the genesis of a new era. That's for sure. It really is, though, because, you know, if you've been following this podcast, you know, we started at a new era for this company when, you know, at Victory Road 2004, that was their first 3-hour, you know, traditional pay-per-view. We went through 2005 and we made it to a new era of the Spike TV era, you know, around Bound for Glory 2005-ish. And we saw the changes that came with that, right? There are some guys that have just completely fell off. Like, when's the last time I brought up Apollo on this show? Or Sonny Siaki? Or you know, Shocker? Like, guys like that, right? They had guys they wanted to go with, and they went with them. We've seen the rise of Samoa Joe throughout the past year of TNA. LAX, you know, the team of AJ and Daniels. Like, there's been a lot happening in 2005. But at Bound for Glory, the previous event, which, by the way, check her out in the archives. We talk about that. But at Bound for Glory 2006, we saw Jeff Jarrett lose the NWA World title to Sting. So Sting is the new champion, and he will be defending against Abyss on this show, which I would have bet my bank account that Sting won this match. And I'm glad I didn't. But more on that later. Also at Bound for Glory, we saw Chris Sabin beat Senshi for the X Division title. And the X Division title has seen a lot of flux since then, because I should also mention, we talk about it a little bit on the podcast, but I'll really lay it out here. TNA had a big prime time special a week before this pay-per-view. They would be prime time going forward, but their first prime time show was 2-hour show. It was a big show. Well, it was a big show, and it was headlined pretty much by a barbed wire steel cage match between Christian and Rhino. Christian won the match when Rhino speared him through the cage. It was a bunch of nonsense, but it was a bunch of fun nonsense, which is TNA in a nutshell. But I was talking about the X Division title. So Sabin was the champion coming out of Bound for Glory. Sabin defended the title against AJ Styles a little bit after Bound for Glory. AJ beat Sabin for the X Division title. And then in the primetime special, there was a triple threat match. AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels versus Chris Sabin, in which Christopher Daniels won and sets up a match also on this show. Christopher Daniels defending against Chris Sabin. And AJ Styles, on the other hand, has entered a feud with Christian Cage. So we see AJ kind of transitioning into that heavyweight division. Well, he's kind of been there before, but I think for the pretty much he's left the X division, pretty much forever at this point. So we get a lot. We get the naturals. We kind of see the downfall of the naturals. We get, new iterations of characters. We see the pay-per-view debut of VKM. We got Raven's flock, whatever the hell he's calling it. I think it's like serotonin or some bullshit. But we see the seeds being planted for that. Paparazzi's here. But most importantly, the reason you probably hit play on this bad boy, Genesis 2006 is headlined by Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. Kurt's debut pay-per-view match and the first match between Kurt and Joe. A dream match. Did it live up to the hype? Well, buddy, you're going to have to listen to the podcast and find out. But this was a fun show to cover, a fun show to talk about, a fun show to watch, but an even more fun show to discuss with my guest, Mr. Warren Hayes of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Returning to the Apron Bump, always a good time with Warren. You can check out Warren and his podcast live on YouTube every Tuesday night. Talks about all of the major scuttlebutt going on in the wrestling world today. Does reviews of shows, WWE, AEW, New Japan, Wrestling Society X. He does it all. He gets into a lot of the nitty gritty stuff. The subjects people aren't talking about, such as, like some of the business side of wrestling. A lot of Japan stuff that you don't hear, as many people talking about. He gets into a lot of stuff. And of course, all the major, the ratings, pal, the Tuesday Night Wars, pal, all that stuff. So, but he does a great job. So go check him out on YouTube, live every night on Tuesdays. Like I said, of course, you can check it out in the archives on YouTube as well, and wherever you listen to podcasts. All of his info in the description below. Join his Discord. Join his OnlyFans. Do all of those things. Support the boy. A lovely chap, and always good time with Warren. And hey, maybe follow me too, huh? At Apron Bump on all the social medias. On YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, give the video a like, give it a comment, give me a subscribe, give me a kiss on the cheek, a pat on the ass, and a tweedle on the nipples. Do all of those things to me and Warren at the same time while making eye contact. Do that. And hey, do you like TNA? Or hey, do you like listening to me talk about TNA with various podcasts? I talked about the journey that we've gone from 2004 through 2005 through 2006 was where we're at now, towards the tail end of 2006. You want to go along that journey with me? Well, I suggest to you to go to apronbump.com, and you can go to the episodes tab at the top, and you can select TNA, and that'll bring you to all of the TNA episodes that I've done so far. I've covered every single pay-per-view from their very first 3-hour pay-per-view, Victory Road 2004, up through now, Genesis 2006. It's always a wacky ride, especially in this era. A lot of throwing shit at the wall and missing the wall and hitting my mother. Like, that's a lot of what TNA is at this point. But there's also some good shit, some good feces. But speaking of good feces, check out this episode, why don't you? TNA Genesis 2006 with myself and Warren from the Mr. Warren Hayes Show.
You're juggling too many. What is it? What do you juggle? Balls?
I don't juggle anything. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're the juggler over there.
What do we? You juggle bowling pins?
Did you say juggle balls earlier?
Yeah, I didn't really want to.
I don't really like the crass talk Really, this is a PG show.
What?
So I'd rather
Is
you just,
it?
I think you should just chill out. Personally, but
when did this happen? What's going on?
man, well, we're already TNAing it up. But speaking of which, oh man, TNA Genesis, man. So you got a chance to check it out? Any thoughts right off the bat?
It was a fine show, I guess. You know, I think that
That's
like,
almost my exact. It was cool. It was fine.
It was all right. You know, but it's really one of these things where it's like, you know, come for the main event and stay for stuff. You know, that's pretty much like it's one of these weird mixed bags of pro wrestling where there's really like a couple of things outside of the main event that you're like, oh, this is pretty fun. Like this is really cool. But then, you know, TNA gets in its own way at the same time. And, you know, and, but this, if I'm not mistaken, like this is one of the last shows or one of the first shows that Vince Russo had his fingertips in, right?
It's towards the beginning.
Or one of the, right. Yeah. Well, I couldn't quite remember if we were like right on the border of, or if he was involved in this one. Right. But I do know like after this, now we start getting the power plays. Now we start getting Vince Russo trying to push Jeff out, and then he starts taking over creative, and then things really get bad. You know,
yeah,
because there's a lot. Because there's still, you know, they still focus. Well, but look, we'll do the analysis as we go along. But this is, I guess, this would be my legitimate thought. The things that TNA were really, really, really good at shine here. And the things that they were not, or that they tried to be something else, how about that? The things in which they tried to be something else stunk.
No, you're definitely
Just as
right.
simple as that.
Yeah, and no, we are definitely in the midst of the Russo stuff, and even like this show particularly, I don't think really showcased that. But man, even like the impacts leading up to this, and they kind of touch on it, like as far as the buildup goes. Like barbed wire steel cage matches, and then they have a 10,000 thumbtacks match, and then the reverse battle royal. Abyss is here because he won a reverse battle royal, like all that shit, and then it just gets worse and worse. So, but like you said,
the legacy of the reverse battle royal, though, it's tremendous. Like what?
Do you remember like the actual like how that played out at all?
Yeah.
Because it was the battle royal.
Walk us through it.
Well, it was a battle royal to determine the seeding for a tournament, which would then play out to, and then the winner of the tournament would face the winner of the reverse battle. It was a very convoluted way to get there. But honestly, like I do commend them in a way of like trying something new, like doing things kind of off course, even though not everything's stuck. Even there's a lot of things in this show that are like that. But yeah, on the whole, this show was solid. I mean, the tag division, TNA always had their tag division really good, probably better than any other company, especially at this point. Then the X division too is well represented here, and Kurt versus Joe up top. So, I mean, from a card perspective, I mean, this is one of the better shows that I've watched so far. Did it meet expectations? I don't know. We'll walk through that. Yeah, let's journey along, shall we? Well, we open up here. First of all, let me ask you this: did you watch TNA back in the day?
Sporadically, yes. Oddly enough, it was at that time. It was easier to get TNA than it was when WCW was in its heyday, like around here, where in my neck of the woods. So yes, you know, I was sort of hungry for an alternative. Let's put it that way.
Right. Okay. So you kind of knew what you were getting into then. So yes. The show opening up with the moon landing promo, that whole stuff. That was like, yeah, you kind of figured it'd be something like that, right?
What I really liked about the, you know, their bumpers, you know, and we cleared this, right? This is not necessarily a PG broadcast.
No.
But their bumpers that they'd have between, you know, the matches and whatnot, you know, and they'd have like these glowing balls that would have glisten electricity in them, right? No, listen to me. It's if you looked at them at the exact right angle, and I kid you not, and anyone who goes back to watch this, you will come back to me and say, you were right, Warren. They look like two giant pairs of boobs. because of how the light, how they managed to do the 3D light reflection. You know, just look like two huge white nipples at the base of this. If you go back and watch it, and I promise you, now that I've told you, you can't unsee it. It's tremendous.
I'll have to review the tape because that isn't necessarily. I was very distracted.
It didn't stick out with you? No,
like the loud audio of it, because it's like they're showing the matchups as the electricity noises, and then you can't really see who's in the balls. It's just so bright and loud, and they're doing a lot here, but I don't know.
All I could see is just a big pair of boobs.
Well, I think you might have been. I think you might have been a little fresh while you were watching this, if I do say so. So
sure.
Well,
we're getting a little frisky,
maybe, perhaps.
Question:
do you think this show is as significant as the moon landing?
No.
Close, at least close.
Look, I mean, we at least we know for sure that this show was taped in a studio, right? At least that's the one thing we can be sure about.
Yeah, that's one thing they have in common, right? Oh,
exactly. That we're like, hey, no conspiracies here.
Well, it's actually so I primed you for this show. I sent this over to you. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be Joe versus Kurt. Gonna have some fun stuff. You turn this show on. The first thing you see is Maverick Matt. Thoughts?
And no, that's it. Like, I'm like this, but that's pretty much it. I'm like, I'm stoked. Joe and Kurt Angle and the win streak, and I'm like, not only Maverick Matt, but the New Age Outlaws as well. That's
not who they are.
The Voodoo Team Team Kip.
Who team?
Team Kip and James. James Kip.
Yeah, Team Kip and James. That's what you actually nailed it right on the head. Good job. The Voodoo Kid Mafia. Warren. I don't know if you noticed this, but their initials are VKM. I think I'm just throwing this out there. This might be my tinfoil hat. It's the same initials as Vincent Kennedy McMahon, so I think it might be a play on that.
Listen, this is no. Why would you mention the other company on your show?
Sorry.
You know that this is not possible.
Taking shots.
You can't do this.
Desperation.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they were talking about a guy, called Michael Hickenbottom. Michael who? I don't even know who that dude is.
Never heard of him. I think he was a chef at one point, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, we just got I don't even know where to start here. So we got the team of, it's a 2-on-3 handicap match. We have the Voodoo Kin Mafia, of course, BG James, Kip James, against the team of Johnny Devine, Kazarian, and Maverick Matt. Newly repackaged, by the way, this both teams actually, but the threesome here, they have makeup on. I don't know, how would you describe their aesthetic here?
I would look lower end goth show freaks. How about that?
I like that.
Not bad. You kind of like the guys would hang around the Jim Rose Circus at the. You remember you ever heard of that? The Jim Rose Circus in the 90s. It was a traveling freak show. Yeah. Well, see, first of all, I'm really old, and when I thank you. And,
Wise.
Yes.
Seasoned.
Yeah, that's when you try to go and you hit on a girl at my age and said, "Oh, sir, you look so wise." I'm like, okay, well, that's it. I'm moving on. No, it was a traveling carny show that
bearded lady type stuff, yeah.
Bearded lady, geeks that would put shit in their noses and all.
I think they actually did this gimmick like 5 years after this, but continue.
But probably because it's wrestling is always too late on these things. Right. This is really in the 90s, and it was considered cool because they were like all in this grunge aesthetic, which was really really big in the 90s, and they'd go to Lollapalooza and all that shit. And they actually came to my town way back then.
Really?
And I made out with the bearded lady after the show.
Lucky devil, you twirled your facial hairs. Any tangles?
No, I shaved back then. I was a clean, fresh baby face. Yep.
Man.
So interesting. No, it was interesting.
What a lucky gal that lady was. Well, no bearded ladies here, unfortunately. Just these guys. So basically, just kind of introducing these two new entities, I suppose. It's essentially a squash match. You wouldn't think it, but the two in the 3-on-2 gets the win here. VKM wins with Billy Gunn, hits the pedigree and tunes up the band. Doesn't hit the super kick, but he, does that whole deal. Kip wins with the one and only slam. No, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. So basically, VKM wins. Whatever, we're solidifying them. But this group of misfits, this Carney group here, they seem to be worthless without their great leader. But lucky for them, he's here. Raven comes out. And, well, I guess this is later, but for all intents and purposes, it's like right after the match. They head to the back, but then they bring Kaz and Maverick Matt bring out Johnny Devine because he's the one that got pinned. Devine is blindfolded. He gets on his knees in the middle of the ring, and then Raven comes out in a white pinstripe suit. I don't know if he's going for Steve Harvey. Yes?
And he's got the collar right up to here, right? He's got
this
thing with the collar, like that character in the old Bazooka comics. The Bazooka Gum comics.
I know what that is. How old do you think I am? Was this 25? Before I was born? I'm a wise 30 years old, but
oh, look at you!
I do remember Bazooka. I don't remember these.
I
don't remember these.
Terrible candy, just terrible gum.
Yeah, it
really wasn't good.
No, gum kind of sucked back then. You get the hard balls out of the quarter machine. It was all a racket.
It was a hard time. It was difficult.
Yeah, but we made it through it. We did. And as Johnny Devine made it through this because he takes a caning from Raven here due to him losing. A lot going on here.
And Raven just leaves then. And then Raven just leaves. Listen, the best, first of all, the best part of the match was that it was short. That's really the best part of the match. Second of all, nothing says, hey, let's put over our guys by having the WWE guys come in and beat them 2-on-3, right? That's the, fantastic booking.
Right.
Let's say this would happen today, okay? Because they cut a very direct promo at the end, right? They're trying to get
brother. I think we're around the cusp of this happening in AEW with all the Tony Khan tweeting. Right? And we're getting a VKM in AEW next week. I guarantee it.
But when you have when they're in the ring and they're literally calling out Vince, Paul Levesque, and Shawn Michaels. They're using they're using the shoot names and whatnot. How do you feel people would react today if that were to happen, right?
Ooh. It's just but the thing is, what's the end game? And that's kind of the case here.
That's always the question. Because that's always the problem with shoot angles, right? It's okay, well, how does this make money? What is the end game? How is this going to generate interest, money for your brand, right? If you're just standing around saying, we're taking the war to you guys, tune in on Thursday, Vince, Paul, Michael, you're like, who cares? What are we doing? What's the excitement here? Because I'm completely with you. That's always the danger with these angles here, is that at some point it just feels like a vanity project or going wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
Smart fans,
I will say, though, I do remember watching this as it was happening, and I remember being hooked by it. Obviously, it never led to anything, but I remember being into it because, especially in 2006, we're well beyond the Monday Night Wars. I mean, WWE's had the monopoly essentially for 4 or 5 years at this point. Like you said, hungry for an alternative, as many people were. This is kind of like a boom period for TNA. So I'm into or like at the time I was into somebody calling out WWE and the potential of like, oh, is there going to be cross promotion? Is there going to like, but again, it led to nothing. But I see like they're just throwing shit at the wall, and that's kind of what TNA did. But
well, then that, yes, we're getting into that era of just trying anything out. We're about to start it officially.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if they did do it today, I think it'd be maybe more plausible for it to lead to something. I still don't think it would, but I think
people would be unreasonably angry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Just like, there'd be collective suicides and things like that.
Oh, X would be unbearable. But
It'd just be ridiculous. Like all these hot takes, they should not be mentioning. Oh, who cares? I love this cast. I love this. Like, I'm not even trying to say this was a bad idea. No, au contraire. I think we could use more of that in pro wrestling today, to be perfectly honest. I think it's great. I love this kind of stuff. I love chaos. They're at war. They're fighting with each other. They want the upper hand. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I love this stuff.
Yeah. And, before this, nobody was caring about the James gang. So, I don't know. Do something, BG and Road Dogg.
There you go.
Or that is Road Dogg. Who gives a fuck? But then we go to JB backstage, Jeremy Borash, with Shane Douglas and the Naturals. So they had been feuding with Team 3D, the Dudley Boys. Mm-hmm. But Team 3D had ventured off to Japan for a bit, so they couldn't face each other on this pay-per-view. But the Naturals have the table that they put the Dudleys through the previous week. They got Shane Douglas yelling stuff. The Naturals. You a fan?
No.
I
think these. No. I think they stink. It was like this is, natural, brown-haired natural and blonde-haired natural, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's essentially it. They just melt together. No, I don't think they were particularly great. I could actually imagine them like traveling with Shane Douglas, and then them get. Mr. Douglas, would you like us to get you a coffee? Mr. Doug,
Yeah.
And Shane pulling over at the gas stations, like, fill her up. You tossing $20 and go fill her up and go get me a Coke or whatever.
Right.
With the table all packed in the back of his, of his Impala or whatever the hell, whatever.
That's probably what he
whatever
drives.
the hell Shane Douglas was driving. Yeah.
No, yeah. Big young boy energy from the Naturals here. I will say, though, the first few years of TNA, the Naturals were great in the tag division. When they didn't have this Shane Douglas bullshit. It was them and AMW and Triple X, and like they had a good run. But unfortunately, this match here might be at the end because they're in a match here. The Naturals, Andy Douglas, Chase Stevens, of course, taking on the team of Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt. Boy, howdy! The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right.
Lethal and Dutt both. Well, Lethal is more new, but Dutt's still kind of a lower tier guy in the X division that is starting to make a name for himself. And this match here, clearly the Naturals win it, and I think the goal here was to build the Naturals. But I think ultimately Lethal and Dutt came out looking better and probably had a lot more interest behind them than the Naturals. What did you think about it?
I think so too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the match itself, I don't know. I didn't really have.
We have to talk about the finish though.
Do we have to?
This is one of the greatest finishes in the history of pro wrestling.
Lay it out for me.
So I don't know. Natural blonde. Okay.
Chase Stevens. Have some damn respect.
So natural blonde, not that this finished. Natural blonde picks up Sanjay into a powerbomb position, right? Then natural dark was supposed to come off the ropes, right? And drop kick Sanjay into the powerbomb, right? Like follow through.
Doomsday device.
Instead they were totally out of position, and natural dark ends up drop kicking natural blonde in the back. Okay. Dutt falls on top of natural blonde.
Right.
But since this was the finish, blonde hair, but the natural blonde like turned him over and covered him anyway because that was supposed to be the finish.
Well, here's where you're wrong.
It was tremendous.
Here's where you're wrong. So
enlighten me.
You thought that Natural Dark was trying to kick Sanjay Dutt. However, their move is Natural Dark kicking Natural Blonde to increase the momentum of the power bomb. Now you might think, oh, look, a power bomb's coming. Natural Blonde decides reverse power bomb, puts him the other way. So not only does he have the momentum behind him, it's a misdirection kind of maneuver here. So they're kind of just playing chess, whereas you're over there playing checkers, I think is the thing. So.
Okay, clearly I am not on the level of the Naturals.
You're just not in the lore. You're not familiar with the lore of the Naturals.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Well, there's a lot of you fucked up chants after the match.
See, even the audience were befuddled by what they saw. They believed that
they were thoroughly whelmed by this match, I think.
Yes, they were quite whelmed.
Well, so much for the Naturals. But hey, Lethal and Dutt are here, and that's fun. And they will they're still here. 2023. Still as good, I would say, probably. Maybe better. I don't know.
Lethal's he's a super solid pro wrestler, you know.
Yeah.
And Sanjay, well, you know, I don't know if Sanjay has aspirations to wrestle anymore, but he's still very much a personality, and I enjoy the work.
Has his pencil, all that stuff.
There you go.
That's all you need. Well, what are your thoughts on Team Canada, Warren? They're not here, but one former member is.
What like? Are we talking specifically about Petey Williams?
Yeah, Petey, but more so just, you know, Team Canada being represented. A1, Johnny Devine, Scott D'Amore, you know them. Eric Young, Bobby Roode.
I mean, they've always been fine, I guess. You know, it's important to TNA lore. All right, you know. Sometimes, look, I find it's different, like for, at least for me, as opposed to American fans, you know, when you do the Team USA and the USA chants that permeated wrestling for years, you know. Yeah, exactly. You know, like I remember going to a show, you know, here again in town, you know, like I'm in Canada and you have Hacksaw Jim Duggan who comes to the ring. It's a house show, you know, and he starts stomping everywhere, and everyone in the arena's chanting USA, USA, and I'm like 11 years old, and I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we chanting USA? So you know for me I guess the nationalistic feel, you know, stuff, it never really did anything for me. But I mean, Eric Young, Petey Williams, fantastic wrestlers, Bob Roode, you know, the combination worked and I liked it. They could have called themselves, I don't know, the Great Bald Beard Guys.
That's a great name, actually. That's really good. They probably should have went with that.
Yeah.
Maybe
if anyone wants to use it, it's a freebie. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. I can see the merch.
Yeah, but you know, if you're asking me, did you like the stable? Oh hell yeah! Like, but you were from Canada. Oh, who cares?
You didn't have the jersey. You weren't waving the flag, doing the hand on your heart deal. Okay, I thought it was
the one time that it really got to me was Brett and Sean, when Brett decided to lean into the anti-American stuff. That's because I thought that was brilliant, and it was a lot of fun, and it was really different, right? Local babyface, Bret Hart. That was tremendous stuff, and it solidified him as a hero here in the country at the same time, right? Like everyone in the country knows who Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart are. You know what I mean? Like that's just a thing. But yeah.
You just love anti-American stuff, which is well known. Well, I mean, everybody knows.
Yes.
So.
Oh no, of course, that's part of my brand.
Well, we got a lot of that on this show to touch on, but I bring up Team Canada because you know Petey Williams is here, and he was kind of brought into the fold by LAX, the Latin American Exchange. They were going to burn an American flag, and they brought Petey because you're not American, you're down to desecrate a flag. Petey's like, sure. They bring him along. They give Petey the blowtorch, and Petey's like, hey, mister, I'm not as mean as you. So he punches all of them, and then he gets his ass kicked because there's 3 of them. But more on that later, I suppose.
No one said Canadians were smart.
You do drink milk out of bags, so, you know, doesn't seem efficient to me.
No, this is the. Oh no, hang on a second.
Huh?
I will stick up for bags and milk.
Sell me on bags
any
milk.
friggin' day of the week. It is actually more efficient.
Yeah.
You can actually transport more milk in one vehicle by putting them in bags than putting them in cartons or jugs.
How often are you transporting milk?
Myself, zero. However,
don't tell me you have milkmen up there.
Well, no, not anymore, which is a
Okay.
shame. But they still have to they still have to transport from the distribution centers to from the producer to the distribution center to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Carbon footprints are minimal with bags.
Right.
I'm just stating facts here, brother. That's how we keep the costs down. That's why milk doesn't cost $10 a gallon. I don't know how much it costs in the U.S. to be perfectly honest, but I don't drink milk. But
I get it straight from the tap.
Honestly,
What were you saying?
it is the most efficient way to consume milk. It keeps prices down. It is less costly to transport. So and at the same time uses less gas, less emissions, less emissions. Better for the environment. Again, Canada's figured it out.
Okay, but you reach into you want a bowl of cereal or poutine or whatever the hell you guys eat up there. You need some milk with it.
Yeah. Oh yes, milk on my poutine. Yes.
You grab it. Don't pretend like that makes it more ridiculous. Okay. You grab your milk. You unzip it. What do you do with it? Do you have to?
Oh, you snip the tips. You snip the tips.
I'll snip your tip.
Oh well, my tip's already snipped. I don't know what to tell you.
Really, I'm bad news.
You're 49 years too late, pal.
Well, speaking of circumcised, we got two fellows that, I don't know, probably circumcised. We got Christopher Daniels, the X Division champion, versus Chris Sabin for the X Division championship.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, howdy. So, two legends. Two guys that define the X Division here. I had a lot of expectations going into this match, and I think this was kind of here to set up future stuff, as were like most of the stuff on this card, I think, but a solid match. I think the dynamic might have been better because Christopher Daniels is a babyface and Sabin is a new heel. So they're trying that out. I think if the dynamic was switched, it might have been better, but I thought it was solid. I thought it was solid. What do you think about it?
I really liked the match actually, as well. I thought it was very, very good. And I thought babyface, and I thought heel Chris Sabin was weird, actually. Yeah. Like, I don't feel it comes very naturally to him. But yeah, you try stuff out. Some things work, some things don't. But as far as the match went, I thought this was tremendous. I thought it was very, very good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was it was a good palate cleanser for the first to get rid of the first couple of matches. For real, I really liked it.
No, I agree. Yeah, and coming out of Bound for Glory, which is the previous pay-per-view, Sabin beat Low-Ki to become the champion. But on Impact, they had their it was like 2 weeks before this or 1 week before this, they had their primetime special on Spike. It was a 2-hour show, big show, so they wanted to represent the X Division as much as they could. So they had a triple threat match. It was Sabin, AJ, and Daniels. Actually, no, this is a few weeks before this, actually. AJ and Sabin were in the tournament to determine the number one contender for the world title. But there was also an X Division title match in which AJ beat Sabin to become the champion. And the following week on the primetime special, it's a triple threat match in which Daniels was included, and Daniels ended up winning, and that's how it kind of AJ and Christian started. So a lot of hullabaloo to get here, but Sabin also has been disrespecting X Division pioneer Jerry Lynn, which he
incredible
can't do that. So
you really can't do that.
He has a lanyard. You gotta respect him.
And I like it. He just I'm trying to remember they wanted him to shake hands, right? If I'm not mistaken, at the end, and for a minute you thought Sabin was going to do it, but he didn't.
Yes,
right. But it wasn't. But Jerry Lynn hadn't arrived at that point. I don't think. Right.
So
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
No, I'll walk you through it. So we have the match is good. I mean, it's like the greatest hits. You have Sabin with the hesitation drop kick, and Daniels doing all of this, STFs and his BMEs and et cetera, et cetera. First of all, I think they botched the finish because Sabin was going for a cradle shock, had Daniels on his shoulders. Daniels counters into a crucifix pin, which looked very much like a 3, but the ref did not count it as a 3. But then they just did a roll up right after it, and it was a 3. So I think that the crucifix is supposed to be it's whatever. It looked fine, I guess. So Daniels wins, retains the title. Sabin goes out to grab a chair because he's pissed, but Jerry Lynn comes out and to try to stop it. He's like, "Come on, Sabin, you're better than this. This is the X Division, code of honor, etc." And then Sabin gets pissed at Lynn, and they start, jaw jacking. And Jerry Lynn takes off his lanyard because he's an official or a coach or whatever the hell. Takes it off, throws it on the ground. Now he's a wrestler. I guess that's what that means. And
that's how it works, actually, in real life and in anything. Oh. Just get rid of your credentials, and you can fight anyone.
Well, that's good to know. Take notes, folks.
Yep. Trust me.
I'll try that out at work tomorrow. But Jerry Lynn tries to make them shake hands, Sabin and Daniels. They shake hands. Jerry Lynn's like, "Job's done. Let me skedaddle." But as he turns his back, Sabin hits the cradle shock on Daniels and saunters away. Not saunters. He kind of gets out of there pretty quickly. But Jerry Lynn's pissed. And I guess, I don't know if we're building to a match between Jerry Lynn and Sabin, but Jerry Lynn's still very much in his, I think he becomes Ring of Honor champion like the following year. So he's still in his, wrestling phase of his career. But I thought it was a solid little angle at the end there.
Yeah. Oh, no, I enjoyed this. I think that it was good. If anything, I thought, I would have probably added a couple of minutes on the match because I thought the guys were really starting to cook when we got to the finish. But other than, I enjoyed it. Solid match.
That's kind of a running theme throughout this show. There was a lot of matches that I think had another gear to them. But again, I guess we'll get into it. But before that, we got to talk about my favorite thing going on in TNA right now at this point. It's Kevin Nash. In the X Division. An X Division pioneer, Kevin Nash.
Pioneer, yes.
So the paparazzi is Kevin Nash, Alex Shelley, and Austin Starr. Some may know him as Austin Aries, but I know him as Austin Starr. So they got the camera, they got all the hullabaloo, and Kevin Nash, he says, "Guys, I need 90% from you guys tonight. Not 100. That'd be, you don't want to blow your load. Just give me 90%. And then they proceed to do something that I actually have a clip here. I would like to get your expert analysis on the following.
Yeah. You like that? Yeah.
Thoughts?
Not a lot of people know this, but this actually originated in 1972 with Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki, actually. Right. This would be their very private routine that they would do to warm up for the match. Now, I know what all you sickos are thinking, right? Yeah, you know who you are.
Yeah.
But if you laugh at this, you are actually laughing at the history of professional wrestling.
Disrespectful.
Absolutely disrespectful.
This is serious.
You're probably
business.
Thinking, it is. Yes, especially when we start talking about Japanese pro wrestling.
Right.
Then it's no more fun and games, no more chuckles.
Strong style.
Very serious. Very serious.
Inokiism.
That was actually the basis of.
That's how it was created, huh? That's how it was conceived.
Well, that's how it came to him.
That's how it came to him, he says. Mr. Warren Hayes, folks.
Hey, thank you for being here.
Well, hand fucking aside, we got, by the way, I hope people listen to this on a Bluetooth speaker or something. It's just very loud and their significant others in the next room and
their in-laws.
There's no way to explain it either. They're just handshaking very loudly. No, this can't.
What are you watching? What are you watching, Dan? You want to marry my girl? What are you watching, Dan? I just gave you your blessing last week, and now this is what you're doing to me?
I'm just warming up.
Had I known.
Just warming up, Steve. Well, we got the handfuckers, paparazzi, the team of Alex Shelley and Austin Starr versus the team of Lance Hoyt and Ron Killings, the truth. So very interesting versions of wrestlers that are pretty much all wrestling today. I don't know if Austin Aries is still wrestling, but what were your thoughts just seeing these iterations of all of these guys? What was your thoughts?
Super baby Alex Shelley was something spectacular. That was in and about itself. That was wild to me. And yeah, seeing look, Lance Archer today versus Lance Hoyt in 2006 is like you could not have two completely different versions of the same man. Like it's like they're both tall. Don't get me wrong, but it's two completely different things. But you know what? It was fun to see Ron Killings, in this career prime that he had. Right? He had just recently been world champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been like 2-3 years before this, but semi-recently.
Obviously this is not a great spot for him. Like, he's not, main eventing anything.
Gatekeeper at best.
So, he's not, he's not in the prime anymore, but still really interesting to see that he's the guy probably closest to still doing that thing today. Right.
Yeah.
Still very more serious back then. Like, when I say today, when's the last time he's been on WWE television? Right.
I think he got injured.
But like even doing goofy shit or whatever.
It was NXT stuff. It was, whatever.
It's been a while, so of course now he leans a lot more into the comedy because he understands he understands his spot and he knows, well, just got to keep myself over. So this is what I'm going to do. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the theme song and everything, it's
same
one,
same aesthetic, same. I mean, he could still go when maybe not quite as spry as he was here, but I mean, he could still go when he wants to.
Spry is a good word. Yeah.
Maybe to your point, he knows when to turn it on and when to just go for the chuckles, which, there you go. People pay to see that in the old in the Fed, as they say.
The Fed.
We got, of course, Kevin Nash is here on commentary to watch the fruits of his tutelage out there, Alex Shelley and Austin Starr. And Nash on commentary, first of all, the match. I mean, there's nothing to this match. But Nash on commentary. I have no notes on the match itself. There is just,
no. There's nothing to note.
But Nash is looking to inject personality into the X Division, and we see that I think very soon after this with like Black Machismo and maybe some others I'm forgetting. But we've seen it with Austin Starr. I mean, he came in as Austin Aries and kind of just got lost in the shuffle. But now he's got the tassels, the glasses, the sparkles, and Alex Shelley, pretty similar deal. So I do like Nash's involvement here in the X Division because it can you got a lot of just good wrestlers. It's, let's throw some personality. Let's get some, dramatic kind of characteristics on some of these guys, even if it's a little goofy at some points. But the match itself, I mean, it is what it is. There's some "you screwed Brett" chants at Earl Hebner, which I'm sure you were all about. So you were probably joining in.
Oh, Earl Hebner could never eat for free in Canada ever.
Poor Earl. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just doing what he was told.
Oh, he was doing what he was told until he started selling bootleg T-shirts out of the trunk of his car.
Well, what would you do?
Not that.
Nah, I guess there are other options. Now that
there's a couple of other things you could do, like continue just working and holding on to your good cushy job. That's all.
Yeah, well, he zigged when he would have zagged. So
sure, fair.
We get Star, and I mean it's weird calling him Star. Aries does all of his stuff, the low pay, and you got Shelley they're working the leg of Lance Hoyt. Shelley does a frog splash on his leg, and he's a tall boy, so it makes sense. But the finish comes because they got the little tripod with the camera on top of it ringside. Alex Shelley wants Austin Starr to film what he's about to do, but as Starr has this camera, he's getting it set up, Lance Hoyt rolls up Alex Shelley in the ring for the win, and it's all on camera. My God. So Hoyt and Killings win, and they dance away, and the paparazzi's in shambles. So, yeah.
Must be really hard to try and get tape from TNA then for your sizzle reel if you have to bring your own cameras ringside and then get your tag team partner to shoot you, right? There's probably tons of paperwork you had to go through. I don't know. Maybe Jeff really just didn't want to part with any tape at all. I don't know.
They got the budget's
Don't
tight,
understand
man.
why
They
you
just
do
got
that.
Kurt Angle. I mean, there's not a lot of money,
Fair.
not a lot of disposable income. Maybe,
That's true.
perhaps. Well, more on that. Maybe, probably not. But after that, we got AJ Styles taking on Christian Cage. Woo-wee. Two guys still going today. Christian probably more.
Yeah.
Well, Christian a lot more prominently today than AJ, but AJ's still going at it. And honestly, I mean, up until recently, I would say this is Christian's best run of his career. But I think today he's making a case for the stuff he's doing now. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, the stuff he's doing now compared to the stuff he was doing back in this time period. I mean, what do you think? What did you prefer, I guess?
Well, listen, I think you cannot have one. You cannot have today without back then. How about that?
Wow.
I think
Deep.
because here's the thing is that watching, because he cuts a promo, right? He cuts a promo, a backstage promo before, and his match here, everything he does today is legitimately an extension of what he was developing for himself back then in TNA. It's really just a natural progression. Like he's no longer like, he's not doing goofy things and doing kazoos and all that stuff. So when you see him today, just older, wiser, more legitimately a fine wine as opposed to what he was
Agreed.
back then. His work today is polished. It makes sense. It's brilliant. I am thoroughly entertained by Christian Cage. Like ever since he started his heel run in AEW. But you look at this here and you're like, it's just an extension. Like we could not have Christian Cage today being as fantastic as he was if it wasn't for the work he did in TNA, which was arguably fantastic as well. I don't know if it's as much a question of which do you prefer. I think they're just like natural progressions of each other.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're not drastically different, but to your point, it's just a more polished version of it today.
It's just confident, poised, it's like just I don't have to say all that much. I know how to turn it on. My charisma is very natural.
Yeah.
And his charisma is so great and understated. Like Edge always had a very bombastic form of charisma, right? Whereas Christian Cage has always been, it's more streamlined, it's more contained, like pulling it out when he needs to and then pulling it back, like much more methodical in his use of it.
He just has a very hateable face, I think is what it is.
Yes, that too.
He just has the natural abilities to be a dickhead, and it serves him well. That's for sure.
Making a lot of money off of it.
Sheesh. Yeah. Well, Christian's here, fresh off of his feud with Rhino. We brought up the barbed wire steel cage match earlier. That was the week before, which was a great feud, and it really kickstarted Christian's heel work. And
because he was just about to be a full year with TNA at this point, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
right?
It was Genesis 05 when he debuted.
Oh, right. But Genesis 05 was in November. Was this in November? This was in November, right?
Yes, November.
So it had been a year.
Yep,
Okay.
pretty much exactly a year. And he had spent a lot of the time as a babyface, and that's just kind of been a theme throughout his entire career. Like he's fine as a babyface, but god damn it, he just thrives as a heel. And
It's tremendous.
we're seeing it here. AJ Styles, of course, the most prominent. I mean, he is TNA at this point. He's the guy that differentiates the company. Like he's a part of that whole movement. And very fresh feud here. AJ kind of brought it up earlier with the tournament. Christian cost him a match, so now they're at odds here. It's kind of just like an all-star match of sorts. Just two of the biggest names in TNA at this point. So first time ever, of course. I think Christian's undefeated at this point. I could be wrong on that, but so good stuff. In the atmosphere, you have the dueling chants in the beginning, so it was a great atmosphere. I will say though, this match felt very short. It felt like they were just starting to cook, and then it kind of ended. But with the angle that ended up happening afterwards, I think I was fine with it.
Sense.
But I don't know. What'd you think about this one?
I'm completely with you. I thought this was really, really good. Styles, and that's another thing, right? Is like Styles still going today, and we all have fond memories of AJ Styles. But when you really go back and you watch how nimble and just smooth, oh Jesus, he's so good. Just the very basic stuff that he does is just tremendous. Everything he does, and in the meantime, Christian Cage being wily and opportunistic. He's like. He's just like, oh, you're going to do this. I'm just going to move out of the way kind of thing. And you're like, yeah, that's how I'd wrestle. I wouldn't wait there for you to fall on me. I'd just like move. It's tremendous. This was very good. I wouldn't want to say it's my match of the night because I think it would be disrespectful, but it's really up there. I really enjoyed it.
You're more of a Lance Hoyt and R-Truth kind of guy as far as your match of the night. No, I'm with you.
Natural blonde and natural dark did it for me.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, with their innovative finishing moves, holy smokes,
they're setting the world on fire. Let me tell you. But yeah, no, I agree. Everything AJ does is just so like impactful. Like the drop kick he does, it's like he tries to kill you with everything he does. It is like I don't know, but like you said, so smooth. And Christian, same deal. But the finish comes when Christian he grabs a chair to swing it at AJ. But Daniels, who is a buddy of AJ, former tag champion with AJ, comes out to grab this chair from Christian. Christian's in the ring. Daniels is inside the ring. They're doing a tug of war deal with this chair. But as AJ tries to roll up Christian in the ring, Christian holds on to this chair that Daniels is holding. There's a lot going on here. So basically, Daniels is kind of indirectly preventing AJ from rolling up Christian. And then Christian's able to let go when he wants to, and then drops down and rolls up AJ to counter it. And Christian gets the quick win out of nowhere. So Christian wins kind of, again, indirectly due to Daniels. And at least that's how AJ perceives it. Because then you have a whole pull apart between AJ and Christopher Daniels. They're scuffling. It's getting really hot, really sexy between the two. And then Rhino comes out, the voice of reason. He's like, hey,
oh yes,
I don't know what involvement he has in this, but he's like, hey, he even says it. He's like, look, I don't normally get into other people's business, or however Rhino talks. And then AJ was not too pleased with this. He says, I'll forget what exactly he says. He's like, well, thanks, Dr. Phil, or something like that. And then he storms off. Very, very, very out of character for AJ to be so rude to somebody, but.
In the most Georgian accent too, right? Like, well, thanks, Dr. Phil. And then he walks out. It's just fantastic. That's why Vince never really let him talk all that much, But it's tremendous stuff. I think Rhino was just like, I'm one of the vets. I'm a vet. I'm gonna come keep you hotheads.
I suppose
I'm gonna come cool you hotheads down. We need a unified locker room, whatever. I think he was just
cut the malarkey, says Rhino.
Cut the malarkey.
I think AJ probably would have received that better. Maybe
probably.
Perhaps.
Yeah, maybe he would have been a little more keen to shaking the hand then.
I think so.
I agree.
I think so. But yeah, kind of just sparking, because I know AJ would eventually turn heel and join up with Christian. I forget where exactly in the timeline that happens, but I'm assuming this is kind of the seed being planted here. But we'll get into that, I guess. Long tights AJ on the way, folks. But boy howdy. Up next, we got the NWA World Tag Team titles on the line. The champions, LAX, the Latin American Exchange, the team of Hernandez and Homicide, taking on America's Most Wanted, the team of Chris Harris and James Storm. America, Warren. Okay?
America. I've been told.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ho. You know what I'm saying? So.
Listen, nothing says more America than America's Most Wanted being accompanied by a Canadian of Korean descent. Like,
right.
This is fantastic.
Right. Did you catch what James Storm said in his promo before the match?
God, yes. There's so much. He said so much.
2006, folks. What a time.
Well, listen, to be fair, he did say the First Amendment protects you against the government, but not against us. So I'm like, now James Storm should hit up Twitter once in a while and remind some people. Look, I have one of the meatiest meathead pro wrestlers, James Storm, telling me exactly how freedom of speech in the United States works. I'm like, okay, I'm impressed here. Not gonna lie. But then he makes fun of minorities for like 30 seconds straight, and it's tremendous.
I mean, he doesn't make fun of them. He just tells them what they're good at. I think that's a compliment.
And Gail Kim is like right there. You know, it's tremendous stuff.
Hey,
It is absolutely brilliantly clueless. I love it so much, Kyle. It's brilliant stuff.
she didn't have a dog in this fight, I guess. So it's y'all fight amongst yourselves.
That's fine.
But Gail Kim did get brutally powerbombed by Hernandez. So I think
Yes. Well, she has a personal vendetta, if anything, but probably the whole politics of the thing is like over her head.
perhaps that knocked the racism into her. Maybe. You ever think about that?
Is that how it works? Come to think of it,
Yeah.
one too many shots to the head and like boom. I hate everyone.
Yeah, like you get amnesia, like you forget who your mother is. Sometimes, boom.
So what you're saying? Here's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe racists just need another bonk on the head to become okay again. Maybe we just need to hit them some more.
Different
is what
angle,
you're saying.
perhaps. Yeah. Level them out. Chiropractic, but in the head. You know?
All right, I'm on board with this. I'm gonna try it out a couple of times.
All you're good for is swimming and drywalling, he says. Fix my garage. It's James Storm. It's not me. I hate that now it's just a clip that's out there, but please nobody take that out of context. You not only cross the border, you cross the line. As he tips his cowboy hat. America. All that stuff. So
While having a beer.
that's what we do down here. That's all we do. Is drink beer and hate Mexicans. So
we have free healthcare.
yeah, well,
Sorry.
tomato.
That's all we have.
And you have bags of milk. But we have a tag team match here. Obviously, LAX. Their characters rooted in the ongoing immigration stuff in the U.S. and how they often make some decent points here, but maybe they're a bit rough around the edges and spreading their message. Calling everybody gringos and white boy bitches or whatever the hell. I don't know. What are your thoughts? It's kind of relevant, very relevant today with the Juice Robinson stuff and the quarters. What are your thoughts on like using these controversial like race related subjects in the avenue of pro wrestling?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Look, it's pro wrestling even before this period here in the 2000s and whatnot. It's always been very exploitive of race relations, minorities, vulnerable groups. We can. It's been used up and down, and for the sole purpose of getting over, right? In whatever way, shape, or form, it's to get a reaction, get people over. That's what it's for. That's what pro wrestling is about. So these topics, like this one here, or maybe even something that requires finesse, like the roll of quarters thing. You mentioned it with MJF and Juice Robinson. These are topics that require a certain form of finesse. Where it's like people will always say, well, they talk about it in other shows. Yeah, but in other shows, the target isn't necessarily to get someone over for a pop,
Yeah.
So we have this history in pro wrestling. Like, I understand why people push back on these things because a lot of times they were distasteful. They weren't necessarily great. And when you have the baby faces being, cutting promos where they're talking about, Mexicans doing menial jobs, well, it's not necessarily great. It doesn't look good. So, I can understand the pushback. I can understand why people don't like it because because pro wrestling is not meant to treat these subjects with finesse. It's meant to blunt force it into your face so that the baby face or the heel will get over,
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. And I think if they're trying to establish an antagonist, I think it's effective. 2006, you have AMW. You said it be in the same way, but the opposite direction. I don't know if that's the best course of action.
Maybe a little weird.
But no, they're American. That's their thing, I guess. But match itself, I thought it was a good match. I thought I think Hernandez really shined. He's such a beast in there. I think the Cracker Jack, how he throws people and just tosses people around is just insane. I mean, AMW, probably the most significant tag team in TNA history. So there was a lot of good stuff in this match, I thought. Ultimately, AMW goes for the death sentence on Hernandez, but I think Conan distracts the ref or whatever the hell. Homicide grabs the blowtorch that they were going to use to light the flag on fire, hits James Storm, I believe, I don't know, one of the AMW guys, and this gets the win for LAX. So LAX retains here, and there's a bit of a rendezvous afterwards. But thoughts on the match itself?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. It didn't get me up and down, but I can't complain about the work. See, I thought Homicide really really shined here, and I feel like he was working a type of match that neither Storm or Harris were really ready for or were used to. The Homicide was much more well traveled, works in a lot of places, and didn't necessarily train under the style that would get you on television, if you know what I mean. So you could see that sometimes he was trying some stuff out, and the guys were selling. I mean, I'm not saying that it was a disaster, but you could tell that it wasn't quite as flowing or as natural.
Bit of a styles clash.
Yes, and Homicide as well. Wasn't he on the cusp of a Ring of Honor World Championship run? Wasn't this on the cusp?
It was close. Yeah, I'm not sure when exactly, but yeah, it's about that time.
So we're getting Prime Homicide, and Prime Homicide was really good. Prime. This was the good times, and honestly, I wouldn't say this is one of the best Homicide matches you could see. If this was your first exposure to him, you could be like, I don't understand what's so special about the guy. This was fine. I didn't see any problems with it, but yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Homicide just got brought in as a part of a tag team when he was such a star in Ring of Honor. I mean, the stuff that I've been watching it from Ring of Honor. I think we even covered a Homicide match, him and Joe. So he's just such a star in Ring of Honor, and the matches he's having, and he's having good matches here too, just as part of the tag team. But I think he would have an X Division run at some point, but otherwise he didn't really have much of a singles run. But no, I thought it was fine, and I think we're reaching the end of AMW soon. Maybe I think they try a solo thing with Chris Harris or whatever the hell, but it doesn't really pan out. But we get after the match, Homicide goes to give Gail Kim the Gringo Killer. I think it's what we're calling it at this point. But Petey Williams in to make the save, your boy. And
he's looking after a Canadian, so that makes sense to me. That's fine.
There we go. And then you guessed it, Jim Cornette comes out.
I did not.
I knew you were watching this. He was like,
don't throw this on me now.
This could use a sprinkle of Jim Cornette. Oh, howdy. And he runs down LAX. I don't remember what exactly he said, but yeah, you're in America. That's basically what he's saying.
He was saying the fans don't care for you and burning the flags. Veterans watching the show. He was going all out with the American sentimentality here. Everything that a good red-blooded American could get behind. He was just bashing it in.
USA.
Good old Jim standing up for values.
As he often does, as we know him for.
Yes. It's the essence of his brand even today.
Well, he doesn't like these Mexicans in particular, so he strips them of the titles because fuck them, I guess. I guess if you try to burn a flag, then you get the title stripped. Yes.
Why didn't they just have them lose the titles? Why didn't they just lose the titles in the match?
Well, it's even better because he's not stripping them right now. I'm going to strip you in 5 days. Okay.
Now, this is where you're like, oh, Vince Russo.
Tune in to Impact next week when I strip you. Why not just take the titles? What are they going to... What if they
hit just to have them hit the bricks. Like if they're I'm stripped of the titles, but I'm hanging on to them. I'm not coming back.
Or at the very least, sell them on eBay or something. You know.
And there you go. I'm hitting the bricks. I'm out of here. Like this finishing angle was garbage, and you could and the audience turned on them too. The audience completely turned on Cornette as he was doing this promo, because everyone saw this as bullshit. There's no other way to call it.
Right.
Have them drop the titles in the match, strip them, but then we're going to take the titles away in 5 days. You're like, what the hell? None of this makes sense. But there you go, Vince Russo, right there, right then and there. That's a Vince Russo angle right there.
Yeah, I think people were. I mean, like, LAX was a hot act at this point, and even if people are booing them during the match, like, people are behind this team as far as like a good team to boo, and they
good team
identify the talent that they have. So it's like, oh, you're sure. I like them as champions, kind of thing. So it's like, I don't know. And yeah, to your point, it's very Russo-y, and the crowd wasn't into it. So
absolutely not.
We'll see what happens there. I'll keep you abreast of that. But oh man. Russo, we're talking about Russo. Let's talk about Sting versus Abyss, shall we? The NWA World Title's on the line. You got Sting, the champion, defending against Abyss. Of course, the winner of the Reverse Battle Royal tournament. You seem like you have a lot of thoughts.
Am I a bad person to have enjoyed this?
Can I ask you a question? Did you also enjoy Macho Man versus Crush at WrestleMania 10?
No.
Oh, well, it just seemed like the same match to me. But
that's a good point. There was something just I don't know, wackily endearing about everything that was going on. I don't know. Because for real, like it had all the elements for me to hate it, you know, for me to just like this is trash. And I can't say this was a great match either, but Kyle, I had fun watching it.
Well, that's all that matters at the end of the day, huh?
Like I had fun. And you know, I went back, you know, and I looked at it, you know, the Observer at the time, how much it was rated, and then, you know, a couple of dirt sheets, and everyone hated it. You know, it's like Alvarez in the figure four newsletter, he gave it a dud. Like
yeah,
everyone hated it.
Can't
But
say
I'm
surprised.
I'm looking at everything that's happening in this match. Like outside the finish, like this was just bonkers, you know. And it was as far as I had seen Sting do this kind of stuff as well, you know, falling on tacks and shit like that. You know, it's like, I don't know. Because I know, like you said it yourself, it has Vince Russo's fingerprints all over it. And I'm like, am I a bad person? Because I shouldn't like this. But I did.
From the TNA that I've watched doing this podcast, the running theme has been, it sucked, but I enjoyed it. Is a kind of a thing. Jeff Jarrett's title run. Whew, oh, they were all stupid. They're all stupid bullshit like this. But I loved every single match, and I enjoyed this match too. I mean, first of all, I should say this is not a street fight. This is not Extreme Rules. This is not Weapons Wild. This is not a no disqualification match. Just a match. That being said, it's riddled with barbed wire and tacks and bats and tables but whatever. It's the world title. There's some leniency. I guess it's referee's discretion.
Exactly.
Until it isn't. But the match gets underway. Sting comes out. First of all, and what did you think of his getup here? It's not the traditional Sting garb.
I don't have any particular thoughts. I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't anything that you could easily you won't find any wrestle buddies with this gear, let's put it that way,
because you've looked, right?
Oh, as you know,
you're a well-known wrestle buddies collector. But Sting comes out, or Abyss comes out first, then Sting comes out. Pearl Harbor job to Abyss, underway right off the bat. Quick start to this. They're brawling on the outside. I swear I looked away for 2 seconds, and I look back, and there's barbed wire tables being stacked by the stage. Cool. It's an Abyss match. Yeah, it should be expected, I suppose. They fight back to the ring at some point. It's back and forth. It's fine. There's a ref bump which I don't know what the purpose of this was, but this allows Sting to hit Abyss with the bat, hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop, but James Mitchell pulls the ref, so he can't make the count. And oh boy, this allows Abyss.
He pulls him out in the funniest way possible.
How'd he pull him out?
He's like, he's fumbling with the ref. You know, he's trying to get him out, and the referee knows that it's his spot to roll out of the ring. So the referee's trying to position himself. So it's really, really funny. It's great. It's tremendous.
James Mitchell, he was going to do it by any means necessary. You got to respect it. Only to allow Abyss to pull out a bag of tacks, which Sting gets his hands on, and Sting's the one that lays the tacks out in the middle of the ring. But by golly, he's hoisted by his own petard or whatever the hell. He gets chokeslammed. Sting does into these tacks, which, I mean, he landed dead center of these tacks, shirtless. I mean, good on him. That couldn't have been a fun bump to take, but Abyss makes the pin, and Sting kicks out at 2, and he does this, does the no-sell Sting stuff. That back is all busted open. He's pouring blood out of his bag. I mean, it is getting gnarly. Scorpion Deathlocks come into play. It's a lot of stuff like that, but then they fight to the outside, which is when the match really starts. What? Why is there a rappel, a rope, or whatever the hell? Because he didn't come in on this. He didn't come from the ceiling. Does he just have
Mike
it on
Tenay,
standby?
You can always count on Mike Tenay, Kyle, in these situations where he said, the professor, he says, this is the rappel. He mentioned the rappel that Sting sometimes uses for his entrance. Said sometimes uses for his entrance. Probably more like in WCW when he would actually do it, just to harken us back, but that's how they justified it.
I don't think he's used it once in TNA. I'm just gonna throw that out there. And I mean, look, okay, I guess. I mean, it's the same venue that they're always in, so theoretically.
And I mean, they set it up, right? They set it up, and it's like, hey, Sting, we got your rappel. Not tonight, fellas. And then then the week after, Sting, we got all your entrance set up. Not tonight, fellas. Then the week after, Sting, we got the rappel set up. Not tonight. Like, it's his discretion. They always set it up. It's on the tech sheet. The ring crew have to set up the rappel just in case Sting wants it. But he never uses it. It's his own discretion.
Right. And then as they were setting up for this show, they were like, hey, Sting, we got your rappel for you. And Sting's like, no, I don't. Wait a second. Oh, man, I think we might use this. Set her up. Be ready for when I give you the signal. So, I should also say, and the impact before this, Abyss hung up Sting backstage like a piece of meat in Rocky and hit him with whatever the hell, just beating him up upside down. So, the turns have tabled here. Sting beats on Abyss on the outside and hog ties him by the ankles with this rappel rope deal. He ties his ankles up and then he pulls the rope so Abyss is hanging upside down, and then connects it to the ring so Abyss is just hanging there upside down, and Sting hits him with the chair once, twice to the back, and a third time to the face, and then he just lets him down. So all of that for 3 chair shots?
Hey. And the absolute anxiety that accompanied watching Sting struggle to tie up the cable, and you're like, he's gonna drop him on his neck. He's gonna this guy's gonna die, isn't he? But the anxiety there was pretty high. Of course, it didn't happen. We knew no one died here. No one got seriously injured. But when you see it, you're like, oh my God, this could have gone so incredibly wrong.
There was no quick lock in this case, which might be the way to go.
Yeah, thankfully.
In hindsight. But but Abyss, well, he gets hit with the chair a few times. But Sting pulls him down, unshackles him, brings him to the stage area where these barbed wire tables are set up. And the ref is like, come on, Stinger. Like all the tacks and the bat and the hanging them, like, you know, Crush was hung in WrestleMania 10. Like, you've done a lot, but that's enough. That's my limit, Steve. Sting's like, listen, bud, whatever his name is, a toodles with you. He shoves the referee down on his backside. And the ref has had enough. He DQs Sting, but Sting doesn't care. He shoves Abyss off the stage through the barbed wire tables. And I'm watching this because in hindsight, I'm like, okay, Abyss never got a TNA. He was never world champion. Abyss isn't going to win this. Oh, he won by DQ, but he doesn't win the championship. Au contraire, because I guess it's a rule. I don't know if it's an NWA rule, if it's a TNA rule. You can lose the title by disqualification. So the world title is awarded to Abyss via DQ. Very interesting turn of events.
You can't touch a ref. You just can't. Look, he endured, you know, chair shots and tacks and barbed wire tables and all that, but you can't. You shove the ref. That's it. You're done. Disqualified. Title to the other guy. What a terrible, terrible finish to this match. Like, you can't sugarcoat this. This was really bad, and even myself, I was like, "Wait, what?" You know, and you know, you could have. Look, it would have been the same thing if, like, suddenly, you know, someone tosses someone else over the top rope, and then they call the match like, no, disqualified. You know, one of these old NWA rules from 1986. You know, it's like you can't throw people over the top rope. You know, it's like, what? Okay. If they had done maybe just a little job to remind us of the wacky rules, you know, because at this point in history, you know, it is by default in everyone's mind, you cannot lose a title by disqualification. Like in 2006, it's like a common law. Everyone knows this. You know, you watched wrestling, you know this. Mm-hmm. They really could have like pulled out a few of the odd rules out of this, but then it would have maybe given away the finish at the same time, right? Because then you're expecting it. Then it's like, oh, okay, why are they talking about this now? This rule that we haven't spoken of in 26 years, kind of thing. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like I'm not exactly sure what comes of this. I would venture a guess that maybe because Jim Cornette, he's going to be in a title stripping mood on Impact, let me tell you. So I think maybe like they like reverse the decision, and then maybe like it's vacated and they have the reverse battle royal to determine a new champion. I don't know, but it was very surprising to see Abyss walk out as a world champion because, like I said, I don't remember him ever being world champion. But
and a bit of and it's a terrible finish for a pay-per-view. Let's be honest, for a pay-per-view match. I think it's a bad finish. I really didn't. Doesn't make sense to me.
I do like the visual. I do like the visual though of Abyss. He's still in the barbed wire. He's trembling. He's bleeding, and then he just gets handed the world title, and he's like, "Oh, I'm the champion," kind of deal. I don't know what this pantomime was, but you know, it is what it is. It's the first of many schmoz matches between the two. I think they have a casket match of sorts where you have to like the casket repels into the ceiling. I don't know.
Oh God, you're right.
That was the first time I remember a Fire Russo chant. But more to come with that. Can't wait. But the main event is here, everybody. We got first time ever Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. So this is Kurt's first pay-per-view match, and debuting against Samoa Joe, a dream match, definitely at the time. Match that many probably thought would never happen. And it was all started by, you know, the famous headbutt when Kurt debuted on Impact and headbutted Samoa Joe, busted his nose open. And that's really the story. And they just don't like each other. It's pretty much a story here, but the vibes of this match were palpable, I would say.
It's tremendous.
It was just big fight feel. And I mean, there's a "This is awesome" chant just at the initial lockup. So it was one of those matches. It was definitely a vibes match. I mean, I'm interested to hear how you thought this match was.
Oh, I mean, look, this was tremendous, you know, and at the time, I can only imagine like this was right at the end of Kurt Angle's no compete, right? Because he had been fired in August, if I'm not mistaken. I think
something like that
in the summer. So like this was at the end of his no compete. Samoa Joe undefeated at this point in TNA and not lost a single match. This had huge, like, you know, they were billing it as the dream match of the decade. Okay, yes,
sure,
but you know, regardless, the hype was very natural around it. It was a big time match. Samoa Joe was tremendous with, you know, an indie stalwart at that point. Everyone loved Joe. Kurt Angle leaving WWE. What are you talking about? That was huge and a tremendous get for TNA. Like, because there was no downfall at that point. You know, things weren't breaking apart on Kurt Angle's body. Au contraire, he was.
No, he was still red hot.
Yeah, and he was pushing the limits of his body, if anything. So yes, he had just been fired in August. I just double checked my notes here. So I mean, it was a tremendous match, and you could feel it, and you could understand it. Pro wrestling in its simplest form works so well. Like you said, there wasn't much to the story.
Right.
These two guys don't like each other. Hey, that's great. That works for me, especially when these two guys are intense and brutal as these two guys are. It's like, sure, I buy into this. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And you made the point that Joe's undefeated at this point, and Samoa Joe is like the hottest thing going in TNA as far as, you know, homegrown, quote unquote. And then Kurt Angle's coming in red hot. I mean, he was the world champion going into this year's WrestleMania, so he's still got a lot of momentum behind him. And so it's like an immovable force, unmovable, whatever the hell it is, right? So it's like you really don't know who's going to win this one. Like, are they really going to have Samoa Joe lose here? Because Samoa Joe hadn't lost at this point. It was like an unfathomable thing, but you also can't see Kurt Angle losing his pay-per-view debut. So just a really great setup for this one. And I mean, honestly, I don't know how long this match was. It definitely felt like they were setting up for a rematch, which I know they would eventually have, but still, I mean, they didn't hold back in this one. I mean, Angle is gushing blood pretty much from the beginning. I think he gets run into the stairs or something.
Did we know that Kurt was such a bleeder? Did we know this? I'm asking honestly because I never remembered Kurt Angle just like juicing like this. Like he skyrocketed up the Muda scale. Like it was ridiculous.
I don't know. He's taking blood thinners or whatever the hell to make him squirt a little
there's
extra.
Always a couple of aspirin, you know, something like that. Sure, you can do that.
Nobody.
I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing he'd be putting in his body at that
Shit,
point.
yeah. I don't know, man, but he's to your point, he's gushing. It's just amping up the intensity of this, just on top of their natural intensity. I mean, there's Joe. Once Kurt is busted open, Joe kind of dominates for a bit, but Kurt comes back with the triple Germans. It was a very awkward third one, but I mean, he dumped Joe right on his head.
He can't get the full tilt on him. But you know, it's great because it's like, you know, he's covered in blood. He's exhausted. Joe is not as big as he is today, but he's a husky man. You know, it adds to the realism of the thing. Where it's like, no, I can't perfectly do the third one because, you know, the effort that I'm expending here is ridiculous, right?
The blood loss and all that stuff.
Oh, it's just fantastic.
Joe hits a muscle buster for a 2 count, and then
for a 2 count, right? And then you're like, okay, it's anything can happen at this point.
And like finisher kickouts aren't as prominent of a thing in 2006 as they are today. So like to see him, you know, kick out is a legitimately a crazy moment here. It kind of progresses into some really good counter wrestling. Like Kurt hits the angle slam, locks in the ankle lock. But Samoa Joe rolls over and pulls him into the choke, but then Angle grabs the ankle into the ankle. So it's very reminiscent of like his matches with Benoit and stuff like that, where it's just like seamless, you know, reversals and into submissions and things like that. There's turnbuckle posts, spots, shoulder. Joe goes for a shoulder block, I believe, and goes into the post, and Kurt hits the angle slam, and then he's dripping in blood. Just the visual of him, he pulls his straps back up and then pulls them back down. And he's so intense. His veins are popping. He's pink. He's red. I mean, the crowd behind him is amped as hell.
The crowd is nuts. The crowd is into it. It's ridiculous.
And because Joe had already spent a good amount of time in the ankle lock, but he got to the ropes earlier. But this time, Kurt locks in the grapevines, wraps his legs around Joe's leg, and just turns this ankle lock in. Blood is gushing, and Samoa Joe, taps out, being defeated for the first time in his run in TNA. For 17 months, he was undefeated, and it comes to an end here in a just an intense match, just a really fun match, and it felt like a main event, felt like a big fight, and I don't know. I thought they nailed it here.
You were asking like it's about 13 minutes. The match is about 13 minutes.
Right.
And it's crazy. You're like, but okay, well, I thought it was super intense. I loved it. You know, we all know wrestling is fake, but wrestling is, excuse me.
Wow, how dare you?
Predetermined. But when wrestlers are able to make it feel real, that's when the magic happens. That's when it's great. And you really did feel like both these guys were on the same level, that they both hated each other, that they wanted to destroy each other. And it just came across like that. And Angle, I thought, worked wonderfully here. Joe was great. You had all the elements here. From what I understand, the guys finished the match early. Like, they wrapped it up early. There were several minutes left to pay-per-view time. So for some reason, they wrapped it up quicker than it should have been. And I think, I don't know why, but that's what I gather historically, is that everyone backstage was kind of surprised because that they just ended it at 13 minutes. It was supposed to be longer. Like, apparently they were even telling the producers, you know, they wanted to do like real big entrances and, have a big fight feel start. And both Joe and Angle were like, no. Let's cut the shit because we want to wrestle as much as possible. Yeah. And yet they wrapped it up early. So the mystery is still there to this day. But yeah, look, it ends the streak, like you said. They'd have a rematch at Turning Point in December. So and then they'd have another match at Lockdown. Like, look, Joe and Kurt Angle is one of the seminal feuds of TNA.
Oh, yeah.
It's like one of these. It's just one of these.
You can always go back to it, kind of
defining.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean, look, this was tremendous stuff. A lot of people said that it was the greatest match in TNA history. I still think that it's AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels from TNA Unbreakable 2005.
2005. I mean, yeah, Samoa Joe. I mean, I wouldn't even say this is Samoa Joe's best match in TNA.
No, I don't think so either. And I think, don't get me wrong. I thought this match was tremendous. Like, this was right up my alley. I was cheering for it. Maybe the fact that it ended really short, it was like, oh, okay,
yeah,
kind of thing. But then everything was short on this card too. That's something else. It's like for all of the goofing around we're doing, it's a breezy card to watch. Like, what, 2.5 hours, you're done.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. It's really not that long of a card to consume, and everything, the bad stuff just whisks by, and the good stuff is all right. The nice palate cleansers and a great main event. Like, it is an excellent, top-notch main event. Don't get me wrong. I thought the main event was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll ask you this. Do you think today, like watching this with 2023 eyes, do you think we're just today so conditioned for like these epic matches with like all the finisher kickouts, like all of the crazy false finishes and like the stretches towards the end of the match, whereas this one kind of felt like just more of a straightforward match that was very good, but I feel like maybe we're just more used to just see like finisher kickouts. I think that's a big thing of it, or just like big time moves, more false finishes just overall. Do you think it's just a different time, maybe?
I thought this made perfect sense in the context of this show, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I was like, look, okay, so maybe at the time this was like perfect, and it was, you know, I myself, the match ended and was like, oh, I could have got a little more out of this. I feel like they could have hit another gear, right? Because what you're saying at the same time is not entirely wrong as well. You know, there's you can feel in these big matches like that. You can feel like 3 acts in every one of these big matches, like you mentioned, right? You know, you got the opening stretch where things start settling. Then in the second act, it's sort of you get a heat segment, couple of comeback spots, and then the third act starts to kick in when the big comeback begins. Then you start getting the false finishes, the big, you know, that's when, and that's where the drama really starts to crescendo. So maybe it's just a question of watching this as opposed to modern sensibilities where you're expecting something else. You get this. Like I'm not hating on it. Absolutely not. I was just surprised that, oh shit, 13 minutes for this match of the decade. You know, this dream match of the decade. No one could bill a dream match of the decade in 2023 and say, guys, wrap it up in 12 minutes.
No, and I mean,
be like, what? You know, and it's not even a question of we'd feel cheated out of it because we want our money's worth. It's just like, what a weird. If this is such an epic match, why are we wrapping it up? You know, like just in time for Big Bang Theory. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I do think. I don't know. I think it's kind of in a way, it's a good thing to set the precedent that a match can just end at any time. Like, I think, you know, it's a main event of a pay-per-view. It'll go at least 20 minutes. So maybe some people don't even like pay attention for the first 10 minutes or whatever. Whereas this one, it felt a little bit more urgent, perhaps. Maybe it was more of a sprint. Maybe they just skipped that first act and just went right into the intensity. But I don't know, at the same time, they also set up for a rematch. I mean, after the match, they do the deal where Joe grabs the mic and he's like, hey, Angle, tonight you were the better man. But if you're half the man you think you are, you'll give me a rematch. And then Angle just fakes him out, doesn't shake his hands, says, fuck you, hit the bricks, pal, and he leaves. So weird kind of thing. But I guess but then Joe, after Angle leaves, Joe's like, well, Kurt, I guess we got to do this the hard way, which sets up kind of intrigue going forward. So at first I was like, that's kind of dumb. Why are we doing this with Kurt? But it just sets up like what's going to happen next. So I didn't hate it as the show ended, but
no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not. If anything, like I feel like both of these guys could have gone longer. I guess is the point as well. You know, it's like, these guys could have gone longer and could have just like extracted every second out of it for just something truly tremendous. But but I guess here's the thing: is this a quibble? Is this a legitimate quibble? The WWE guy comes in and pins one of the TNA guys, one of the top TNA guys on top of that. A super protected guy. Does the message you throw to your audience is, well, our guys can't handle the guys from the big leagues, you know? Is that the message that you're sending out here?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, Kurt would spend more time in TNA than WWE. So in hindsight, it's easy to say, oh, well, Kurt is a TNA guy, so it doesn't matter. But I understand your point. I don't disagree.
Out the gate, this is the thing. Is like you bring the guy in, and it's like immediately, it's like he's not pinning Christopher Daniels. He's pinning Samoa Joe, undefeated, super protected Samoa Joe, right? And he's the guy who does it. And you're like, isn't that interesting? That would make for some nifty discourse in 2023.
Cool. I'll throw another element here. So this is not Kurt's first TNA match. He had his debut match on Impact the week before. Who did he beat? Abyss, the new world champion, the TNA guy. Made him tap out clean. Abyss, the monster, the guy who went through barbed wire. So yeah, I think there's a lot of credence to that. But at the same time, they got Kurt Angle. I mean, he's red hot. Just give him everything. He's fucking Kurt Angle. And Joe would get his win back. I don't know if it was the rematch. I don't know if Joe won the rematch at Turning Point. I know Joe would win at Lockdown. So, it's back and forth kind of deal.
No.
So.
Like I said, is it really that much of a quibble when you see, because we do have the benefit of history to just go, well, ultimately it was all right, because this and that. And Joe's career didn't suffer for it. Like, it's not as if Joe was, jettisoned to oblivion or anything. He look at him today. It's like
Pretty bulletproof, yeah.
So, just looking at it, thinking about it after, I was like, okay, it's a little weird, but they were able to squeeze so much good stuff out of this feud. Like we said, it's a seminal feud in the history of TNA Impact. So
yeah. No, yeah, great stuff. A first of many between these two, but that brings Genesis 06 to a close. Any other overall thoughts on the show? Anything we missed that you want to touch on?
Kind of like I said, it's a 2.5 hours, easy breezy. Not everything is great on it, but I feel like even the bad stuff doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
You're not getting VKM, Voodoo Kin Mafia, and the other dudes.
Yeah.
It's a sub 5-minute match. So you're not even sitting through, if you were sitting through 13 minutes of the New Age Outlaws getting, beaten up by Johnny Devine, you're like, what are we doing here? But everything sort of flows pretty quickly. Nothing overstays its welcome. But you can already feel like the tide's starting to turn. You can start to feel the Vince Russo influence here. You can start feeling everything that, like I mentioned at the start of the show, everything that TNA was really good at the time shines in this pay-per-view. And the things that they weren't so good at or tried to copy, or you're like, this shit stinks.
Yeah.
It's really bad. But no, listen, I think everyone should watch this main event. I think it's a seminal part of TNA history. I think it's an important part of wrestling history of the 2000s, of the aughts. I think it's I think it's an important part of it. Kurt Angle was, like you said, red hot. Like, it's not even, he didn't have time to cool down in WWE. They just got rid of him, so he was just good to go, and everyone was excited to see what he was going to do next. There was a lot of hope into this as well, that finally, okay, we've got ourselves our red hot guy from the other company. This is the turning point where TNA takes over everything.
It's the next pay-per-view, actually.
Quite work. What's that?
That's the next pay-per-view, actually, the turning point.
Yeah.
This is the genesis of that turning point, though.
It's the genesis of the turning point. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is your show after all.
Well, this is my show, but your show, the Mr. Warren Hayes program, is also a show. It's a seminal feud for me in some ways.
In some ways.
But once again, thank you, Warren, for checking out the show, coming on to discuss it. Where can everybody find you and all of the goodness that you bring to the world?
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Kyle. It was a pleasure. It had been a while since we had the chance to really talk one-on-one. So it had been a while. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And if you want more of this, it happens on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, where I record the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast, where we break down the week in wrestling, analysis, thoughts, opinions, previews, reviews, so on and so forth, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the video on demand, or the podcast, is available the next day on Wednesdays on YouTube and on your favorite podcast application as well. I also do individual reviews for Dynamite and Collision every Thursday and Sunday as well. So pop on in. It's a good time. And if the bouncers have let you in, you can find me on Blue Sky at Mr. Warren Hayes as well.
You don't want to be in there. It's a rowdy bunch in there. They bully me inside that Discord.
Not that rowdy.
Get rowdy? K Quick? Ron Killings?
Oh, God.
You remember that team?
See? Yep, I do.
What are your thoughts on K Quick?
Well, you say you remembered. Yeah, I don't have fond memories. There are my thoughts. I don't have any fond memories. It's just like, oh, this is a thing that happened in pro wrestling. You know, kind of like the Naturals.
Which
drop
natural?
kicking each other in the back.
Which natural do you prefer?
Gun to my head.
Pull the
I
trigger.
have to pick. Yeah, gun to my head. Pull the trigger. I don't want to pick.
Once again, thank you to War Daddy from the Mr. Warren Hayes show for joining me on this lovely, lovely episode. Always a good time with Warren, like I mentioned in the outset. Follow Warren. All of his info in the description below. He's no longer on the X because he's a smart, smart boy. But go follow him on Instagram. Join the Discord. Subscribe to his YouTube. Kiss him on the cheek. Slap him on the ass. Do all of those things. Do the same for me at Apron Bump. You know the deal. You know the deal. You've been here before, right? I think that's all Daddy has for you today. I think we genocided, huh? Geneva Convention. I don't know. Thank you guys so much for listening. Love you all. Godspeed. Farewell. I'll come back now. I'm hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing